This is one of the finest first-person RPG experiences that I have played in recent times, and 14 years later, does it rival Skyrim's launch? I'd say it's better than Skyrim. Now I've got you listening, let's talk about my first impressions for Avowed. So I think the introductory cinematics play a really pivotal part at the start of the game. It's how you draw people in, and I think the 3 introductory cinematics really do set the tone for the game. The first one is a backstory. If you've never played Pillars of Eternity before, this is for you, right? To understand what you are, you're a godlike. To understand the rivalry between the 3 kingdoms, it's really good. The second introductory cinematic makes you realise that something obvious is happening. That poor lemur looking thing. And the living lands are something that we should be worried about, with a genuine concern of some sort of plague occurring and wiping out the entire existence. Not a good time. And then the third cinematic is that ship being destroyed by cannon fodder. I felt as if it was the locals saying, "We don't want you here." Turns out it was a betrayal from the infection of the soldiers. Now that's an interesting and nice twist, and I really do appreciate that from Obsidian. But overall, I am a bit biased because I do like cinematics of games a lot. I think they add a lot of hype, and I think this tells you exactly what you need to know prior to going into the game. I'm making a character. Now, as you can see on the screen, this is character creation. We have a pretty good idea of presets, sort of to build your character, and then you have different body types. I don't really know what the body types means. One's got pointy ears, one's human. You've got a good variety of skin types and tones, and you can change it from a warm to a cold temperature. You can basically make yourself in this game, or any person that you want. You also have a great variety of hair options, which is fantastic. I sometimes feel that there is some that are underrepresented, normally curly hair, normally dreads, that kind of thing, right? You've maybe got 2 options for that, and then you're kaput, and then you're done. So you really got to go between short or long. But in Avowed, it seems like you have plenty of options. You know, you can play to your heart's content, and I love that. You can be a man with dreads, which is what you're seeing on the screen, which is fine. You also have a pretty good variety of beard options if you decide to choose a male character. As you can just see, I'm scrolling through them for you now. You can change your facial hair to a different colour to your actual hair as well, which is, pretty cool. I don't mind that. I like that. And then we move on to godlike features, which is the bit I'm truly excited to talk to you about. You can enable them or disable them depending on if you actually like your character to not have any godlike features or not. You can go from subtle to absolutely deranged, like you're seeing right now on the screen. And I think this is a way for everyone to express themselves creatively, and you can turn these off if deemed too unnecessary for your character, like this one. Now we're on to part 2, using combat and stuff. Woo! So, I think combat has a nice polish on the trifecta of normal gaming attack styles. You've got Mage, which is using the book to use abilities, or using your own mana itself when you get to that level, and using the wand for a fast attack style. It's a really nice way of being a mage. You've also got melee, where you can use power attacks to stun your enemies, and range, which you're seeing right now, which you can target weak spots to do massive damage. What I truly like about this game, though, is that mistakes on high difficulties are super duper punished so fast that if you get hit once, you're basically dead, which is quite unforgivable, but this makes gameplay very exciting and actually enjoyable and really satisfying when you kill off a group of enemies. I feel like you are unable to be a master of everything at high difficulties. You really have to stick to one tree, be it range, be it melee, or be it mage. Again, I'm unsure if this is a positive or negative, but however, later on in the game, with more skill points, your build can become more varied or more one trick. It seems to be a non-issue, but at the start of the game, it is really something that is noticeable. You will have to stick to one style and stick to it well. Skills seem quite varied as well. You have a lot of different abilities in the magic tree and the melee tree. The range tree is more focused on sneak primarily, which is, it's a good thing. You've got them 3 archetypes. Stick with it. It's what people like. Now we're moving on to the story and characters. Woo! In terms of the story and characters, they seem to be quite compelling. There seems to be a power struggle between the Avowed, which almost are seen as colonizers, compared to the locals, which is the Paradisians in the first area. And they basically don't want no trouble, which makes you believe that the Adarians are the bad guys, which isn't really the good outcome at the start, but we will see how it unfolds within time within the story. There is also a higher being who speaks to you through the crystals. No one's heard of this in universe, in game before, so you are really, really special, but you are a godlike, which is what people have heard of before. Godlikes are rare, but hearing a god through a crystal is so rare that no one's ever heard of it, so you feel quite special, which is good. Characters seem compelling at the start. There seems to be that power struggle, like I mentioned before, and side characters seem fleshed out and interesting, each with their different personalities and quarrels, and the side missions are genuinely enjoyable to complete. They don't feel very similar, which makes me actively want to help people or hinder them, depending on how you feel, you psychopath. But there is a lot more twists and turns that genuinely shook me to the core than compared to Skyrim. Skyrim is more point A, point B. This is point A, find out something, and then realise, are you going to go back to point B or are you going to go to point C? Interesting. Now we're on to the best bit of the video, comparison to Skyrim. Stay tuned. In 2 seconds. 1, 2. This is probably the main reason you've clicked on the video. Comparison to Skyrim. I think comparing this game to Skyrim is a must. It's the highest selling video game for this genre. You are going to compare it to one of the best fantasy RPGs of all time. It is the staple. It is the placeholder for good fantasy RPGs. You are going to compare it to that. Bethesda and Obsidian have a history of working together and have very similar themes of games, and have staff that have also worked at both places, which gives it a bit of extra spiciness. And lately, I've been preferring Obsidian content over Bethesda's, and I like this because it gives them a little rivalry. Now, it's a makeshift rivalry in my head. It's probably not really that big of a rivalry in person, but I like the fact that we've got two hard-hitting developers who are making very similar games. In terms of story, arc, and gameplay, it's a very, very similar. You're the chosen one, right? You're tasked with saving the entire world, and you have unique abilities thanks to your bloodline. I think Obsidian does it better, but Skyrim laid out the groundworks. People will say that this hero archetype is exactly the same, right, between the two games, and it is. But Skyrim released 14 years ago, and I want that feeling of being a hero back again. This feeling, it's what I've been craving, and possibly you have too. Just running around, finding random side quests or random exploration that gives me a high-level item, and just goofing around. It brings me back to that feeling of Skyrim, that feeling of being, a teenager when Skyrim came out. Whereas if I were to open Skyrim now, I want that feeling back, and I think it's nostalgia that is also being like, hey, Skyrim made you feel like this, it made you feel like this hero, but then you open it, and because you've played it so much, or at least I've played it so much, I can never really replicate that feeling of what I had when I first played the game. And that's what I'm getting now with Avowed. I think it's got newer and fresher, better combat mechanics. It's a natural progression of the typical Skyrim combat feel. I think it's got a better story compared to being the chosen one who just has to defeat the big bad dragon, in my opinion. So far, I will say. And I think it does exploration better as well. You've actually got to use your abilities to open a cave, or to get rid of some brambles that will then get you to the secret boss fight. There's a lot of things going for this game, and I think everyone's judging it way, way too harshly. I'm saying it, Avowed beat Skyrim in most categories that I've mentioned that I can think of. However, there are a few negatives that I've noticed. You can steal stuff in a locked chest or in pubs with almost no consequence or reaction. Maybe someone says, hey, what you doing? Once in a while, that's it. Upgrading is a bore and takes lots of resources. You really have to keep upgrading to match the enemies. The enemies scale quite quickly. There's levels, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you have an under-leveled item or armor, you really do feel it. And if you're not upgrading well, or you haven't found that perfect weapon for you, then good luck, because you will not be doing any damage whatsoever. But this has been my first impression of Avowed. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscription. And not to get truly emotional, but I love you all. Thank you for watching my videos week in, week out. Thank you for giving it a like, giving it a subscribe. Thank you for giving me, more than 1,000 subscribers so I can start earning off YouTube. Thank you for everyone who comments. I appreciate every single one of you. You know that I reply to every single one of you. And it really makes me happy that I've got this little following of people who genuinely like what I do. So thank you. Anyway, outro music and peace.